sex therapists. There's actually many stories that led me down this path. The first one was religion, actually, long ago. So I have a preacher for a dad, a preacher for an uncle, a preacher for a grandpa. Most of the men in my life are preachers. And I was raised in the church, the Southern Baptist Church. So growing up in that religion, I had heard a lot of negative messages about sex and sexuality. Actually, during that time, there was a popular group of people doing something called purity culture or teaching purity culture, and it had really swept the nation. There were people doing purity rings at the time. Like you'd pledge yourself to your dad. Now I don't remember doing a purity culture ceremony, but I do remember there being a lot of shame messages around females and sexuality, and anyone really around sexuality. And so as a result, I had a lot of internalized messages of shame that I had developed growing up about sex. Now let's complement that with what was going on at the time. So my dad was a preacher, but my mother was a deaf, very sexual person. Like the most sexual person you've ever met is my mother. Here's an example. Recently, for a Halloween party, she showed up with a whip and a dominatrix outfit. And I was like, Mom, where'd you get that whip from? And she's like, oh, I just had it lying around. Just like... So, very straight-laced preacher father, very wild sexual woman mother, deaf. Like, if you don't know anything about deaf culture, they also miss certain cues in life. So the things that other people might be ashamed of, they will not be because they don't hear the shame coming at them. So anyhow, it was this odd mix, right? And so then the women I was with too, so I had two older sisters who were also very sexual. And I know we all heard some of these similar messages growing up. So when I got into my 20s, I had this string of events happen. So I ended up living in Hawaii for about 4 years. But I was definitely coming into myself as a person. I believed in my 20s I should be married. Like I was 21, 20. And because of what I was taught, I thought I should be married by then. And all of my friends were getting married by early 20s. So as everybody around me from St. Louis was getting married and I was out in Hawaii on an adventure, I did want to be on an adventure, I still felt something was wrong with me because I had not gotten married yet. And it was very scary. And I remember I felt so like sexually charged at the time. And so I would purchase a sex toy because I could not help myself. I was like, oh my gosh, I need to be sexual in some way. But then I felt such deep, painful shame after purchasing this sex toy that I would throw it away like a week later. So this went on for a very long time. So I would try to wait. In the meantime, I'd be dating too, by the way, but I would try to wait before I could buy a sex toy, be terrified because feel like God was gonna, kill me or I was gonna go to hell. Because it's a very strict Southern Baptist version too, by the way. And then I would buy a sex toy because I was dying to have some sort of sexual release and then use it for a while and then throw it away again. Oh, there's a boneyard of all the sex toys that I murdered in the process of coming of age and figuring out who I was as a sexual person. I just felt so ashamed and terrified of like, is this wrong? Am I a bad person? Is this okay? Meanwhile, I'm trying to date, right? And so in Hawaii, there is a mix of people. There are military men, there were a lot of Filipino and Asian culture, and there were barely any, there were the rare white person or black person, but it was very rare. It was, unless they were military, it was pretty much very Asian or Hawaiian. There were some Hawaiians, but I would say it was more Asian population. And so I am, if you've ever met me in person, I am 5'11". And very much stood out like a sore thumb during this time because I was taller than every person around me. So even if I did like somebody, the guys would be like right here on my shoulder. So anyhow, I ended up dating mostly military men at the time. And the challenge with dating military men was they either were, some were ready to marry right away, but I'd say most were not. I'd say most were just wanting to play around, have fun. None of them cared. So they wanted one night stands. They wanted to play. They wanted to have a little dalliance while they were in town and then go away. And again, here's me. I'm trying to meet my person forever, and I just wanted to feel validation through marriage. And oh my gosh, so like dating and trying to get validation through marriage, just, that was a really rough time in my life. And so I had this weird thing in my brain where I would say, I can only have sex unless I'm in love or I'm going to get married to the person. And that would put a lot of pressure on the situation because of course these guys weren't interested in getting married. Most of them were just wanting to have a little fun. And so even if I allowed myself to, which I did here and there, I was like, you know what, I need to get some release. So I did maybe one or two, maybe one night stands. But even when I did it, then I felt severe guilt. And I had to come up with some weird justification of I wanted to marry them, but it didn't work out. Oh man, the nightmare. So anyhow, I did eventually meet my first husband, who I have divorced, by the way, but I did meet one man who was committed, and it was the right timing because I was graduating from school, so I was just so grateful to meet somebody at the right time because I had set myself a personal goal that I was going to get married by the time I ended college because I already thought of myself as an old spinster at the ripe age of 24. Can you believe this? I mean, I look back. So I'm 42 now as of making this live stream. And I'm just thinking 24. I remember other ladies in the church. So in the Hawaii churches, they were like, that's weird. That's not how we handle this. But there were ladies in that church who had said to me, this isn't normal. You've got all kinds of time. You shouldn't be in a hurry to get married. But I had been raised in that Midwest purity culture. So I did find my husband and we did get married. And I do think that helped ground me and settle me a little bit. In the meantime, I was going and getting my marriage and family therapy degree. So another couple of stories that led to me becoming a sex therapist is actually, so as I'm feeling all this self-doubt and guilt about not being married, many of the women back in St. Louis were getting married young, and they would call me a year later and say, well, we're married, and now I'm just having sex for him. I'm not having sex for myself anymore. And I was shocked because, of course I'm feeling super sexual. I can't wait to be having sex with somebody who's my husband or partner or whatever so that I can finally legitimately be sexual. But there was all these women again and again who would call me, who were my friends, and say, yeah, I'm married now, but I'm not having the sex that I enjoy. I don't get anything out of this, so I'm doing it for him. And it's interesting how many women to this day that I'm working with right now, that is what's going on for them, that they married young, they didn't know who they were or what they wanted sexually, and they have sex, but they didn't like it, and eventually ended up divorcing some of them. Not all of them. Some of them are still in those marriages. And in fact, today in my practice, that is quite a few people that I work with. There's piles of people who went through that purity culture bullshit and were really hurt, severely hurt, and were basically are now trying to find themselves sexually and don't know what to do about it. So that story got me thinking there's something wrong, and I want to learn about sex therapy. I want to figure out how to make this a better experience for women. And then a final story that got me involved in sex therapy was when I was in Hawaii. I was working at a Filipino Baptist church, and I started this mentorship program with the college kids to the teens, the high schoolers. And it was crazy that like this mentorship got people opening up and talking about what they were going through. There were many ways that actually the teens were feeling very lonely and needed more actually. And so two teens came out to me as being gay. It was a female and a male, and they needed my help to figure out how to come out and whether they should talk to their parents about it or not. And so it was it was not an asked for job, but as a part of what I did, as a part of working with them, I did help them come out to their parents and figure out what they wanted to do and how they were going to live their lives. And it was really, it was amazing actually. I to help them figure out who they were and what they wanted and to work with the families all together was pretty amazing. So I was just so grateful for the work that I did that I realized that sex therapy was really where I needed to be. And so that's how I became a sex therapist. And I just wanted to thank you all for joining me. I do have somebody putting out, like, can you give answers? If you want to ask a question, you are welcome to ask it as long as it's a reasonable question. But so then my next process was I went on to get my degree as a marriage and family therapist, and then I became an ASEX certified sex therapist. And I have been doing this work since I think I graduated in 2009, so it was 2008. All right. If you would like to see me, please visit me at therapistinstlouis.com. Please like and subscribe, and please submit your comments below. My question that was asked is, where are you from? And I am from St. Louis, Missouri. Thank you for asking. If you are interested in joining me for my event, I have an event at therapistinstlouis.com. You can find it. It's called Dinner with a Sex Therapist, and I would appreciate it if you came. There are tickets that you can purchase at eventbrite.com / like Angela Skirtu, and look for Dinner with a Sex Therapist. Thank you.